My tale is not one of joy, but of horror. Only the professor can tell you my truth.
"1975, somewhere in the English Midlands. The school bell rang like a sentence, not an invitation to learn, but a summons to endure. The children spilled out of the brown brick primary school in their scuffed shoes and faded uniforms, all laughter and motion, except for one boy who moved against the current like a shadow in daylight. Graham Wilkes was 8 years old, but already stooped with a posture that suggested he expected blows. Even when none came, his uniform was too tight at the neck, the grey jumper itchy with wear and age. His shoes didn't match. One buckle was broken, the other tied with string. His hair was chopped unevenly, as though cut in punishment rather than care. They called him Golem behind his back, sometimes to his face. Graham didn't answer. He had learned not to. At home, the door didn't open for him. It slammed when he entered. "Where have you been?" his father barked from the lounge, beer in hand, eyes locked on the screen, but anger aimed at the boy. "School," Graham mumbled. "Don't you mutter at me, you ungrateful little..." His mother didn't speak. She sat beside the father, trembling softly like furniture in a storm. She smoked and looked away as Graham was struck. Not hard, just enough. Always just enough. Dinner was cold beans and threats. His chair had one leg shorter than the rest. The wobble reminded him he existed. Outside, in the overgrown yard behind the council house, Graham found his sanctuary. A patch of cracked concrete, an abandoned bird bath filled with moss, and a small plastic soldier missing an arm. He picked up the soldier like a precious artifact. "You made it through the battle," he whispered, brushing off the dirt. "You're still here." From behind the cracked shed, he pulled out his friends. A box filled with broken toys, stolen from bins, from skips, from gardens, where no one would notice. A doll's head with glassy eyes. A wooden truck with only one wheel, the wing of a plastic plane, a bear missing half its face. He called them the Hollow Ones. He gave them names, stories, voices. "You're my army," he told them. "We'll build a new world, where no one gets shouted at, where broken things belong." And in the fading dusk, as the orange sky turned to bruise, Graham played. Alone, but never truly alone, he lined them up like soldiers, whispered stories into their empty sockets, gave them purpose with his pain. The wind rustled the weeds. A dog barked 3 streets away, and from inside the shed, something clicked, a subtle sound, like plastic shifting without touch. Graham froze. He smiled. They heard me. He didn't know it yet, but something else had too. Something very old. Something that lives in silence and listens when broken children dream. Monday morning came wrapped in fog. It clung to the pavement like shame, thick and grey, and Graham Wilkes walked through it with his head low and his satchel banging against his bony hip. He knew what waited behind the blue doors of St. Bartholomew's Primary. He knew the names they'd call him. He knew the sting of spit in his hair and the slap of a ruler across the back of his hand when the teacher decided he wasn't paying enough attention. He was paying attention, just not to what they taught. In the corridor outside Class 4B, Graham paused. Laughter echoed down the hall bouncing off the cracked plaster like darts. A pair of boys, Terry and Mark, waited at the door. They wore mischief on their faces like war paint. As Graham neared, Terry whispered something. Mark grinned. Then bang! An elbow caught Graham in the side. "Careful, Golem," Terry said, mock concern in his voice. "Wouldn't want you to fall. Again." Graham didn't look at them. He stared at the floor tiles, off-white, speckled like eggshells. One had a crack shaped like a lightning bolt. He imagined it was a scar from a battle the floor had survived. He envied it. During lunch, Graham sat alone under the broken shelter behind the bike racks. The wind howled through the gaps in the corrugated roof. It sounded like voices, not cruel ones, whispering ones, gentle. He opened his lunch, a piece of dry bread, one apple slice, and no note. Other boys swapped sweets. They played football. They laughed. He turned away from the noise. They laughed harder. When he looked up again, the apple was gone, and so was his bread. Tuesday he didn't go to school, nor Wednesday. He walked instead to the outskirts of town, where new estates were being built, half-formed homes, skeletons of walls, bricks waiting to be born. He wandered among the ruins of the future. There were skips everywhere, overflowing, and in them broken lamps, snapped plastic chairs, shattered dolls, a headless puppet. Perfect, he thought. He carried his loot home in a sack slung over his back like Santa Claus, but Thursday the truancy officer caught him, dragged him by the collar like a dog with no leash. The headmaster's office was cold, with windows too high to see out of, and a bookcase of unopened Bibles. Mr. Prescott wore thick glasses that magnified his eyes into something insect-like. "You think the world owes you something, do you, boy?" he said. Graham said nothing. "I'll make you understand the consequences of laziness, of failure, of difference." The cane came out like a relic. 5 lashes, each one landing like thunder in Graham's mind. But he didn't cry. He wouldn't. That evening, under bruised clouds, Graham sat in the garden again. His toys were spread out before him on a towel. Cracked dolls, melted plastic soldiers, a rubber snake missing its head, an action figure with a single eye. He worked in silence, fingers nimble with purpose. He glued a doll's head to a plastic horse, replaced the snake's missing head with the jaw of a broken toy shark, taped a soldier's arm where a robot's had been. They looked strange, grotesque, but whole, and in the silence of dusk, Graham spoke. "They laugh because they can't see what I see." He picked up a figure, a stitched-together marionette with a tin soldier's legs and button eyes. "They only understand what's easy, what's normal, but I understand this. I see the broken, and I see what it can become." The wind stirred the grass. "They could never do what I do. They only destroy." He held up his figure. "But I rebuild." He stared at the creature in his hand. They could never reshape what's broken. They could never make something new. He looked at the sky, where one star struggled through the clouds. "But I can." The day Graham Wilkes left school, no one noticed. No ceremony, no farewell. Just a folded letter, reluctantly written by a father too tired to question it, too selfish to care. "You'll help around the house," Graham had promised. "I'll even bring in money." His father grunted and signed. A week later, Graham's name vanished from the school register. The staff breathed a silent sigh of relief. "One less problem, child. One less red mark on their inspection report. Graham found work at Merton's Butcher's, a brick-walled shop with a rusting awning and a smell that lingered in the soul. He kept his head down, his knife sharp, and his eyes watchful. The cleaver became an extension of his hand. Muscle, fat, tendon, he learned the art of disassembly, of control. But in the shadows of the back room, Graham practiced something else. He stitched. Cow hearts sewn to pig lungs, chicken wings stapled onto the haunches of rabbits, tails affixed where no tails should be, flesh woven into creatures no farm nor forest had birthed. "If only I could give you life," he whispered to a sewn-together calf with glass marbles for eyes. "You would understand." "What in hell's name is this?" The voice cracked like thunder. Mr. Merton stood at the doorway, face red with rage, mouth twisted in revulsion.
"Put that back! Who do you think you are? Frankenstein?"
Graham blinked. "Who?" That evening, Graham found the book, Frankenstein, or The Modern Prometheus by Mary Shelley, tattered, dog-eared, donated years ago to the charity shop. He read it that night, twice, then again the next day. This wasn't fiction, it was scripture. It spoke of pain, of exile, of a mind too bright to be understood by the dim. He created, because the world gave him no place. Just like Graham, years passed. One became 3, then 7, then 12. His parents died quietly, his mother first, cancer. His father followed 3 months later. Heart, they said. Graham felt nothing. They had been shadows in his world, background noise to the only voice that ever truly mattered, his own. The house, once dim and grey, now lived only for him. And upstairs, in the darkness behind boarded windows, Graham built a new world. The upper floor was unrecognisable. Curtains sewn shut, walls painted black, tables made of steel and scarred wood, jars with preserved eyes, teeth, limbs, books stacked to the ceiling, biology, surgery, philosophy, theology, occultism. Birds with cat heads rested in cages, twitching. Squirrels with plastic doll arms nailed to their sides, suspended in jars of yellowing fluid. A rabbit with no eyes, only a sewn-shut mouth. He called this room the Assembly. And in the centre, Graham, now lean, gaunt, eyes wild with purpose. He did not answer to Graham any more. He called himself Golem, because he too had been made from dust, because he too had no soul. Yet, they do not understand, Golem whispered to the twitching creature on the slab. This world is broken, cracked down its middle, held together by lies and the illusion of order. He turned to the rows of cages, to the shivering animals with parts borrowed, traded, stolen. I must fix it. His voice rose. Everything dies too soon. Everything fades. But I can rebuild it. I will make it better. He reached for a worn, stained book. Frankenstein. Its pages curled from use, spine broken from obsession. You knew, didn't you? He said softly to the author, who could not answer. You almost found it. But I'll go further. I will find the secret. He placed the book to his chest and looked upward, eyes wide with defiance and longing. I will defeat death. And something watched, not from the shadows, but behind them, a presence ancient and cold, older than bones, older than gods. It had no eyes, but it saw, no voice, but it listened. It did not breathe, but it hungered. It had watched others play with flesh and fire. It had crushed their ambition into ash. But this one, this golem, he was different. He was not trying to become a god. He was trying to replace one. The thing behind the shadows smiled, but said nothing. Not yet. Graham awoke with a jolt. Sweat clung to his skin like old memories. His breath came in short bursts, eyes wide, searching the darkness of his room, though he already knew every crack in the ceiling, every creak of the old floorboards. But the dream still clung to him. Not a nightmare, a memory. The playground, the laughter, the circle of boys closing in, the sting of the word freak, the slap to the back of the head, the sickening crunch of his glasses being snapped under a shoe, the teacher pretending not to see. They had laughed as they broke him. And now, as he sat upright in bed with the house dead silent around him, Graham finally understood. He whispered into the dark, "They tried to bury me, but they didn't know I was soil." He arose and walked to his work table, eyes focused, hands steady. Tools lay in neat rows waiting. "They forged me," he said aloud. "Their cruelty was the hammer, their laughter the flame." He picked up a scalpel and turned it in his fingers, like a conductor preparing for a symphony. "I do not hate them. I understand them." He placed the scalpel down. "They are the broken ones." He looked to the cage in the corner. Something twitched inside, a creature of stitched fur and replaced bones. He smiled. "And broken things must be fixed." Terry Mason. That name had lived in the rot of Graham's memory for years. It surfaced now, like a corpse in still water. The boy who led the others. The boy with the cruel smile. The one who spat in Graham's hair and called it rain. Graham found him easily. The world had changed, but people rarely did. A simple walk into town, a newspaper article on local business leaders, a smiling photo, a name. Terry Mason, senior manager at Langley Finance Group. He waited outside the building, face buried in a book, watching, patient, unmoving, like a hunter. And when the doors opened at 5:30, Terry stepped out. A suit, a fine one, polished shoes, the face of a man who had forgotten the things he'd done. Graham moved into his path deliberately. "Hello, Terry?" Terry paused, looked up. His eyes narrowed, then widened. "Graham?" A brief laugh. "Graham Wilkes, isn't it?" "Bloody hell. Long time." He offered a hand. Graham didn't take it. Terry coughed, lowering the gesture. "How you been, mate? God, those were the days, eh? Back at St. Bart's." Graham's eyes were hollow, fixed, unblinking. "I remember them," he said. Terry chuckled. "Yeah, good times. Simple times. Life was easier back then." Graham tilted his head. "For you, maybe." Terry shifted his weight. "So what do you do now? Got a family?" "No," Graham said, "but I fix things." "Oh?" Terry smiled, like a mechanic. "In a manner of speaking." Terry checked his watch. I'd love to chat more, but my girls are waiting. 2 daughters, you know how it is. Wife will kill me if I'm late again." He stepped back. "We should grab a pint sometime. Proper catch-up. Good to see you, Graham. Really." He turned, walked off, didn't look back. Graham followed. At a distance, no longer Graham, Golem walked silently through the dusk, slipping between streetlight shadows. He watched Terry open the door to a warm home, laughter spilling out. He watched the silhouette of 2 small girls race towards their father. He saw Terry lift them in his arms. He saw the flicker of love, joy, humanity. Golem said nothing. He merely watched, then turned, walked away. Back home, in the black silence of his converted laboratory, Golem began to work. The bones were ready, the sinew preserved, the joints reinforced. His scalpel danced, his fingers sang. This world, he murmured, needs justice. It needs a hand that cannot be bribed, cannot be reasoned with. He pressed a wire into the chest cavity of a monstrous shape beneath a blood-stained sheet. It needs an avenger. He opened his worn copy of Frankenstein, running his fingers along the page like a lover's skin. You failed because you sought love. I do not. He leaned close to the creature. I seek purpose. And somewhere, beyond time, beyond flesh, beyond the veil of this world, something stirred. It felt the shift. It felt the awakening. It watched. It waited. For when the moment came, it would reach across the void and help Golem take the next step, not because it wished him well, but because it knew what he would create next would change everything. All things broken long to be whole again. Golem. The morgue was quiet, not the silence of peace, but the dense, oppressive stillness of stalled time, where the air itself hung heavy with the scent of formaldehyde and loss. Golem had been watching for weeks. He came at night, staying hidden behind the skip, watching the staff through fogged glass windows. He timed the comings and goings. 12:02, the security guard took his smoke break. 12:06, the junior mortician left to heat up his supper. 12:12, the nurse checked her pager and walked the North Hall for exactly 3 minutes. Every second was mapped, every mistake rehearsed in his mind 100 ways. This wasn't madness. This was engineering. The opportunity came on a Thursday. Rain swept the town. Winds howled like a warning. Perfect cover. Golem moved like a shadow made flesh, slipping through the side gate left unlocked for the ambulance drivers. He passed under a security camera at exactly the angle it glitched, flickering between frames. He wore hospital scrubs, stolen from a bin behind the hospice, a clipboard in hand, a fake badge clipped to his chest, a plastic ID, crude, but enough to blur past suspicion in the haze of routine. The body was tagged John Doe, mid-30s, mangled face, motorcycle crash, unclaimed, unwanted. Golem placed the transfer sheet in the tray. No one questioned it. By 12:19, the body was gone. Back in the upper floor of his darkened house, the rain drummed the boarded windows like frantic fingers. Golem stood over the table. The body lay still. I will call you Igor, he whispered with a small, tight chuckle. You've already suffered. You've already been torn apart. He leaned in closer. But I will make you whole. He worked for hours, unseen, unheard. He carved away the scars, reinforced the fractured skull, replaced shattered ribs with steel reinforcements, repaired ligaments, rewired muscle threads, bolted artificial joints into ruined shoulders, eyes of glass, mismatched, one green, one dull grey. He shaved the head bald, then stretched synthetic flesh over the parts too far gone, a grotesque patchwork of life and imitation, and when it was done, when the last suture had been sewn, he stepped back. The creature lay still on the cold metal, motionless, soulless. "You are finished," Golem whispered. "Igor." His voice cracked, not with fear, but reverence. "I have built you, every fibre, every scar, every fault, corrected." He placed a trembling hand on Igor's chest. "But I have no spark to give you, no divine breath, no lightning storm. I cannot awaken you, my friend." A pause. "I would give you my own life, if it meant you could live." The silence deepened, then the shadows shifted, not like light reacting to movement. This was something else. The shadows bent inward, deepening until they turned to void, a darkness without depth, a crack in the world. From it, a voice.
"I can give your Igor life."
Golem did not flinch. He did not tremble. He smiled. "I knew you would come," he said, voice steady. "Just as the lightning came for Frankenstein, you have come for me." The void pulsed. The voice returned, deeper now, ancient, cold and hungry.
"You wish to fix this thing. I can help, but payment must be made."
Golem stood tall, staring into the abyss.
"You, Golem, must pledge yourself to me."
"Yes," he said without hesitation. His voice was not defiance. It was destiny. "I have waited my whole life." The void breathed, then whispered.
"Then let it be done."
The shadows collapsed inward. The room flashed dark red, black, then vanished into silence once more. Igor twitched. One arm spasmed. A foot jerked violently. Then the whole body arched, chest rising high, as though gasping for breath it no longer needed. His glass eyes rolled and locked onto Golem. The creature sat upright, mechanical, stiff, but alive. A low metallic groan escaped its throat, then a sound like wet gravel. Its first word, a growl. The Golem stepped forward, his hands outstretched. "Life," he whispered, eyes wide with triumph. "Life." The creature slid off the table, its movements rough but deliberate. It stood, towering, breathing, waiting. Golem looked up into Igor's monstrous face. "We have work to do," he said. From somewhere deep beneath the world, a god of death smiled. The pact had been made, and the world had begun to change. The Creator does not seek vengeance. The Creator seeks truth. Golem. "They all need fixing," Golem said, his voice low, steady, as they stood in the mist of midnight. The air was cold and still. Street lamps flickered behind them. Before them stood the house of Terry Mason. Golem looked up at the windows, each a soft square of warmth and ignorance. "They tread down those like me. And you, Igor," he continued, eyes distant. "They punish the different, mock the creators, spit on the builders. And for what? For being what they never dared to become." He turned to Igor, hulking, silent, obedient. "We must fix them all," Golem whispered, "so that others like us may live, free to be who we are. No masks, no apologies." The back door opened with a wrenching creak. Igor had torn it from the frame as effortlessly as one might open a curtain. They entered. A soft alarm beeped once, then died. Upstairs, footsteps, a child's voice, then, "Terry!" A woman shouted from above, but it was Terry himself who descended the stairs. He came fast, confused, shirt unbuttoned, barefoot. Then he stopped. He saw Igor, saw the stitched flesh, the black, lifeless eyes, the body shaped by grief, raised by death, moving without a soul. And he broke. His knees buckled, his breath caught, his bladder gave way, soak in the floor beneath him. Then he saw the man behind the monster. "Graham." A trembling whisper. Golem stepped forward. "There is no Graham," he said. "Only the golem remains." Terry's mouth quivered. "Why are you doing this?" "To fix you," said Golem. "To correct the thing that broke me." He turned to Igor, voice sharp now. "Igor, teach this bully a lesson. Fix him for me." Igor moved, slowly, deliberately, each step a thunderclap, each breath a hiss of machinery and wrath. Terry backed away, arms up, shaking, but then a scream. High, fragile, real. "Don't hurt my daddy." A little girl stood in the doorway to the lounge, tears down her cheeks, hands clenched, love blazing from her tiny eyes like fire. Golem froze. He looked at her, then at Terry, who had dropped to his knees now, arms out, shielding his daughter, shaking with fear. And in that instant, Golem saw. This man was not the father Graham had once known. This man had changed. This man loved. And he was loved. He was not perfect, but he was not broken. Not like Graham's father. Not like the world that had raised him. Golem raised a hand. "Stop." Igor halted. A soft mechanical whine, confused but obedient. "I said stop," Golem whispered. "I'm sorry." He turned, coat trailing, the smell of formaldehyde and rain clinging to him like regret, and together they walked into the night. In the park, beneath the steel sky, Golem sat on a bench that creaked under Igor's weight. For a long time he said nothing. Then, "I thought I understood the world, Igor." He stared into the fog, seeing something only he could see. "I thought that to fix it, I needed to punish it, that I was the only one strong enough to reshape the broken." He glanced at Igor, whose head tilted just slightly, listening. "But I was wrong. I am broken, not because they mocked me, but because I let their mockery define me." His voice trembled, not from weakness, but from revelation. "I told myself I didn't care what they thought, that I'd risen above them, but the truth is, I cared more than any of them ever did. Their hate built me." He looked to his hand, the hand that stitched, the hand that brought pieces together. "I didn't become a creator. I became their reflection, twisted, cold. I let them turn my gift into a weapon." He stood. "I wanted the world to accept me as I am, but I was willing to destroy it to make that happen." He breathed deep. "Creation is not vengeance. Creation is truth, and truth doesn't need their permission." He looked up to the sky, the first hint of dawn crack in the horizon. "I thought the world wouldn't allow a creator to exist, but the truth is, I wouldn't allow myself to exist." A long pause. "I am the golem. But now, I must decide what I will become. And in the realm beyond flesh and form, Necros watched. Not with anger, not with disappointment, but with interest. The game had shifted. The pawn had started thinking, and even gods knew to be wary when a creator began to question his purpose.
When the world breaks you, you have two choices. Become the wreckage, or become the architect. Necros.
The golem stood upon the threshold of the world. The sky above him was flat, colourless. The park behind him was empty. The town beyond, silent. No more to fix. No more to fight. No more to prove. Before him, the void had opened. It was not black. It was beyond black. It devoured the light around it, drank the meaning from the air. It was absence made manifest. And from that, nothingness. A voice. Low, endless, not loud, but final.
You have paid your whole life, Graham. The pain, the bullying, the mockery, the shame. All of it was the price of this moment.
Golem did not answer. He listened. For the first time, not with hurt, not with rage, with clarity. The voice, Necros, continued.
You believed they broke you, but it was your hunger for their recognition that left you shattered. You let their laughter build your identity. You let their blindness guide your path.
A wind swept out from the void, not cold but vast, as though truth itself had exhaled.
You tried to be more than them, but you still needed them to see it. And so you built, not to create but to be seen. You stitched together, meaning from scraps of approval.
Golem lowered his head, not in shame, but in understanding. Necros spoke again, now like a philosopher, speaking to his final student.
The creator who bends to the opinions of others becomes a servant. He will not build temples, he will build cages for himself and for the world. To care what they think is to hand them the pen that writes your story. They did not make you suffer because you were wrong. They made you suffer because they feared that you might be right. You did not fail because you were different. You failed because you wanted them to decide if different was worthy.
Golem's eyes burned, not with tears. He had none left, but with something new. Release. Necros whispered now, intimate, like shadow upon bone.
Come to me, Graham. In my realm, you can begin again. I do not need victims, I need creators. I need those who build not for applause, but because they must, because creation is truth. Your time here is at an end.
Golem turned to Igor. The creature tilted its head slightly, silent as always. Together they stepped forward, toward the void. The world behind them did not cry out. There were no sirens, no lights, no goodbyes. Only the soft sound of boots on dirt, and as they reached the edge, where reality thinned and truth revealed itself, Golem whispered one last thought. I was not made by pain. I was forged by it. He stepped into the darkness. Igor followed, and they vanished, not into death, but into purpose. Somewhere far beyond this world, a new one is being built, and its architects are those who refuse to let the broken define them. They do not seek approval. They do not ask permission. They build because they must. End.